vaccine passports. Let's speak to Rochelle Wilkins, who's Regional Officer for the GMB Union, which represents various staff in schools. Morning, Rochelle.
Good morning, Annabelle.
Now, I know that other counties have brought in more strict measures, haven't they? I think Cambridgeshire has. Northamptonshire not at the moment, no?
No, Cambridgeshire brought stricter measures in, I think it was about 12 days ago now, which was exactly the same time that we had an emergency meeting with Northamptonshire, North and West, and basically asked them to bring in the stricter measures as well. We could see from our members that there were rising cases in schools, and we thought it was the time to ask the council to do something about this. So for the last 12 days, we've been on at them saying, you've really got to do something about this. We had another meeting with them yesterday. We are hopeful. We got an email last night. Communication to schools will be going out shortly, still to be finalised, the recommendations, but we understood that they have taken on board the concerns that were raised yesterday. But we still believe that, it needs to be as serious as what Cambridgeshire have done.
So what have they done exactly? Because, some schools have suggested mask wearing again, haven't they? My daughter's at a secondary school and she has.
Yes, some schools have. Some schools have taken the initiative and brought that back in, and we can only applaud them for doing that. In terms of Cambridgeshire, so they basically brought back in masks, increased social distancing in shared spaces, staff meetings to be held virtually, promote lateral flow testing, and also COVID vaccinations. And basically, they've recognised that it's seeding in schools, but it's going back to families, and it's to protect families and the clinically vulnerable. And these are sensible precautionary figures to stop transmission and bring down rising cases. And our concern is that there are still clinically vulnerable people out there who are working who have not got any protections anymore.
So give us an idea of how bad the case rates are in some schools, because you must have spoken to most.
Well, I've actually been visiting schools in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and I've had a couple of near misses in terms of myself. So people who I've been meeting with have later contacted me and said, "Oh, Rochelle, I'm sorry, I've come down with COVID. Fortunately, I've dodged the bullet so far." But yeah, it is bad out there, and we've had cases of schools, one in particular, which I won't name, but had 50% of pupils off with COVID at that time. And the advice that they were given, was barely more than the risk assessment that they'd already got in place.
Half of all students off, that's bonkers,
Yes.
Isn't it?
It is. And the school, had done a really good job in terms of the risk assessment, but the advice that they were given at the time was not great, really. And this is why we really stepped up and said, come on, you've got to do something now.
So you've had meetings, and we've
Yes.
heard from Lucy Whiteman and their lobbying government, but what more can you do?
Well, in terms of the DFE, it was the DFE and the government who took these measures away in the first place. So I believe ultimately as well, the councils can put recommendations back in, but it's only recommendations. We were concerned yesterday because they said that they were going to give head teachers, the ability to say no to mask wearing. And we said, no, you can't really do that. If you're going to put a recommendation in, you've got to say it's a strong recommendation. You can't give them a get out on this. So I think that the DFE really need to step it up now in terms of schools. The government need to step up in terms of this winter plan, and they need to bring in plan B if needs be. But you only got to look at the figures yesterday. The deaths were stark, the figures are rising, the cases are rising. This isn't going away.
Okay, really interesting. A little depressing, but really interesting.
It is.
Thank you very much for coming on. Rochelle Wilkins then, who's from the GMB Union. And it does make you think, it's not just schools that are saying this now. A lot of NHS bosses have come out and said it this morning that we do need to go into Plan B. So we'll wait and see what happens. Right, let's talk about